down your heart, come as you are. You're not gone too far. Like, we're all welcome there. Anybody? Anyway, my name is Lori. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. Woo, woo! Hey, little girl. And I'm a believer in Jesus. He is the way, the truth, the life. Jesus even said there's no way to the Father except through me. So that's why I follow him. So we're glad you're here. Recovery Church, this is who we are. We are starting a recovery community, discipling and sponsors others to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ, who is our hope and the bedrock of our faith. The Bible is the inspired word of God that reveals his standard for what we believe, teach, and do. Prayer is powerful. Prayer is powerful. Amen. And it is essential in our lives. It connects us with God and gives us direction when helping others. We work the 12 steps and the principles in all the programs. They are all taken from the Bible, so why not? We support them by practicing all the programs of recovery. Finally, we'll be known for our love as we faithfully serve others, because faith without works, it is dead. We're going to do an offering. We have ministry expenses and resources. If you have something to put in the plate, a cheerful heart, God loves that. If not, just the fact that you're here, open your heart, and that's a great gift. Heavenly Father, thank you for the resources to honor you and the blessings. Bless these offerings that they may impact others to experience your love. We ask these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen. So we have a little house cleaning. If you brought cookies or coffee in, please make sure you clean up around your area and put it in the garbage. We love this facility. This is most of our home churches, the leadership team here. We love this church. If you don't have a home church, come here. Our pastor loves recovering people. So if you want to smoke, please outside. There's receptacles. And if you have a cell phone, put it on stun or vibrate, so that not to distract anyone around you or you. Take an hour just to sit and put into your recovery, right? Safe place to just be. And, we also want to be respectful to our speakers. I'd say all of our speakers are in recovery, of course, but a lot of them are pastors. A lot of them are just, they love the Lord, so they like to bring the message. We also have a lot of meetings here. Wow, we have a ton of meetings. We have Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Friday night, Thursday night. There's so many meetings. We have AA meetings over in the little room on the other side of the church, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have Girls Friday Night Fat Book right here in this room. We also have a women's NA meeting on the other side of the room, our church. So there's something for everybody. So if you can't find a meeting here, come see somebody with a black shirt on. We will get you connected. The other thing is we're going to do baptisms. So at the end tonight, we are going to do celebrations. We're celebrating lengths of sobriety and things and clean time, but we use crosses. So, and the first one is a surrender cross. So a lot of people in the past month or so have gotten surrender crosses and want to be baptized. So if you're one of those people or you have questions about that, please see someone with a black shirt or myself or Bob Klecky afterwards. We're going to get that baptism going. There's a sign-up sheet in the back. So that being said, we have a great speaker tonight. He's one of our lead pastors. And so no further ado, Dr. Sutton.
All right. Living on sponge cake, watching the sun bake, all of those tourists covered with oil, strumming my sixth string on my front porch swing, smell the shrimp dip beginning to boil, wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim, but there's a one to blame, but I know, it could be my fault. Yeah. Don't know the reason, stayed here all season, nothing is sure but this brand new tattoo, and it's a real beauty, Mexican cutie. How it got here, I haven't a clue. Wasting away again in Margaritaville, searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim, but there's a woman to blame, but I know, bum, 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 it's somebody's fault. Blew out my flip-flop, stepped on a pop-top, cut my heel, had to cruise on back home. There's booze in the blender, that soon ever ender, frozen concoction that helps. All right, now sing it like you're drunk. Wasting away again in my... Searching for my lost shaker of salt. Some people claim that there's a woman to blame, but I know. Yeah, you can't say that in church, but you did. You know. God doesn't get too nervous by it, but the church people, they do. They get nervous with that stuff. If you got nervous with that, it made you cringe a little bit. That's because you probably got some kind of religious spirit. You think you're better than everybody, and just let it go. Let it go. Come on, you know. We used to have prayer circles down at the Salvation Army, and there'd be 60 or 70 of us, and we'd be praying, and somebody'd be praying along, cuss right in the middle of their prayer, and God never struck any of us down. I mean, it just kind of went on. I was like, oh, I'd let go hands real quick because, I don't know, cussing to God is not good. So you heard about I don't know if I told this story here or not, but you heard about the story about the farmer come and knock at the farmer's door, and the farmer went to the door, and there was a man standing there in a suit. The farmer said, "Can I help you?" He said, showed him his badge. He said, "I'm from the DEA. I'm from the Drug Enforcement Agency, and we are under the understanding that you're growing marijuana on this farm, and we've come out here to search your farm." He said, "Well, I'm not growing any marijuana on this farm, but you're welcome to look around." He said, "We're not just going to look around. We're going to search this farm." He said, "Well, all right, you can search the farm, but you can't go up in that back pasture." He said, "You see this badge? That says I can go anywhere I want to go. I'm going to search wherever I want to search. You can't tell me I can't." Farmer said, "Well, all right, fine. Go ahead." Farmer went down to the barn. He was working on his chores, and a little bit he heard that DEA agent going, "Help, help!" And he walked around the barn, and the DEA agent's running up through that pasture, and this great big old bull's chasing after him. He said, "Help, help, he's going to kill me." Farmer said, "Oh, just show him your badge." The difference between power and authority, sometimes you have authority, but you have no power. The DEA guy had authority to do that, but he didn't have the power. And we need to understand we get authority from God's word, but that doesn't mean you have power to do what you need to do. And can I help you with something? You don't have power over anybody else. You're trying to control somebody else. Are you out of your mind? You can't even control yourself. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. I know what I'm talking about. You can't even control your words, the stuff that comes out of your mouth, and there's a lack of control there, and suddenly you want to control somebody else. 3 things you need to remember: what's mine, what's theirs, and what's God's. And I need to stay camped on that square. What's mine? I need to find out what's mine, what's my responsibility, what's my authority, what scope am I supposed to, what's my lane, and what's yours. And if I give it to you, then I delegated it to you, and it's not mine anymore, now it's yours. And what's God's, and that's the stuff that we can't control. Because what happens is we try to control things. Everybody say CIA, CIA, come on. CIA. Control, influence, and acceptance. We try to control people, and the more you try to control a person or a situation, the less influence you will have over them. But if you let go of the control, you'll have a lot of influence. You try to control them, and you lose your influence. So you let go of the control, and you begin to influence what is theirs. And it's not yours anymore, it's theirs. You influence what is theirs. And if you will do that, then you'll have to come up to a place where you accept them just the way they are. Not everybody does what I want them to do when I want them to do it, even though I'm so right and they're so crazy. You know, have you met anybody like that? Is this the right group or not? Yeah, I can tell you it is. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I just thought I got kicked off there and started running somewhere, so it's all good. Let me land. We're on step number 1 tonight. Step number 1, we go through one step in the corresponding principle, and that's kind of how the format of how I teach this class is, that every step has a corresponding principle. 1 is honesty, 2 is hope, 3 is faith, 4 is courage, 5 is integrity, 6 is willingness, 7 is humility, 8 is brotherly love, 9 is discipline, 10 is perseverance, 11 is awareness of God. And step number 12 says this: having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles. Oh, there you go. So you already knew that. So I didn't have to tell you all that other stuff. So I wrote a book called The Principled Approach, so you can do this. We use them up in the jail, and a lot of rehabs all over the country use these in different countries as well. And so I brought a couple of sets along. We wrote a workbook for the people in jail because they didn't have any paper. That's what they told me anyhow. The warden wouldn't give them no paper, so we gave them some paper. We gave them a notebook and put a bunch of blank pages in there, and so then they could write on it. And so you can give this to a guy in solitary confinement, he'll come out sober. It's amazing, you know. I gave one of these to a ministry student last week. He took it to his grandfather and gave it to him. His grandfather sat there and read the thing from cover to cover. It was amazing. His grandfather's getting sober as a result of that. I think that's a very good thing. So I have a couple of sets of these, and I know you wanted a set, right? Yeah, I thought you did. Yeah, who else would like a set of these? Who? Point to somebody. Him? That guy back there? Does he need a set? Are you going to use them? I'm gonna call you and check and see if you actually did something with it. If you've been at this a while, then you know there's a lot more to it than just the steps. There's a lot of other things that we can learn. This is a book, the most recent one that I wrote, called Strength-Based Sobriety. And you can learn things in this book you won't learn anywhere else. The progression of obsession. How many have some obsessive thinking sometimes? The rest of you are lying. How many have some obsessive thinking sometimes? Yeah. So we get that progression of obsession. You know, the sobriety accumulation value. We hand out crosses here, and we hand out chips and tags and all kind of stuff to mark links of sobriety. But the longer, I got to tell you what, somebody will tell you, well, you know, it's really not the quantity of sobriety you have, it's the quality. They're sober usually about 12 minutes. That's why they said something so stupid like that. It's not that at all. The truth of the matter is, the longer you're sober, the more valuable your sobriety becomes, and the more you'd have to lose if you went back the other direction. When I first got sober, I didn't have much to lose. What am I going to slide a cup of coffee and $3 across the table? That's all I had left, you know. Today I'd have to slide a whole bunch of stuff across the table. I have a lot to lose, and you know. So August 13, 1980 was the last time I took a drink or a drug. That was 44 years. Most of you are not even that old yet, and so. Sobriety accumulation value. The longer I'm sober, the more valuable what I have becomes. And not just because of the quantity or the length of sobriety, but because of the depth of growth that you can get if you continue to work the process. But if you don't work the process, then you don't have to. There's a miracle that occurs in most AA meetings. People come there for years and never change at all. That's a miracle right there. How could you sit in this and not change at all? And there's some people like that. That's because they're stupid. I'm sorry. They're just stupid. You're just stupid. I don't know. Why'd you get sober? You know, I've been sober. Well, would you like a drink? I mean, I think you'd be better off. I don't know. So anyhow, we have this strength-based sobriety. Who wants this book? Like, he had his hand up. He had his hand up before I even asked. So. Step number one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Remember, that word is lives, not wives. And your wives have become unmanageable. Some of you had that occurrence as well. We admitted. See, you've been listening to people talk about step number one all month, and so I'm just kind of coming in at the tail end. But I got to tell you something. We admitted the most important part of step one, and the most important thing I can tell you about this entire thing called recovery is we admitted. Everybody say, we admitted. It wasn't that I admitted. I admitted I was an alcoholic, but I didn't really believe that. Because I lied to me about so many things for so long, I believed what it was that I was telling me. Some of you do that. Half of your brain's feeding BS and the other half's buying into it. And so we have that. We were lying to ourselves about it. I admitted I was an alcoholic and I ordered up another beer. I admitted I was an alcoholic and my life was unmanageable, but that didn't matter because what I would do with unmanageable, kind of like what you have done, is I would adjust my life. My life, unmanageability became normal for me. I adjusted my life and suddenly unmanageable was just normality. I just adjusted my life to it. That's what you adjust your life down as your addiction progresses. How many had that experience? What you said you'd never do at the beginning, at the end you ended up doing. And so we adjust our life, and hitting bottom is when your addiction is progressing faster than you can lower your standards. How many actually hit bottom? Yeah, I hit bottom. But I was unmanageable. I had unmanageability for a long time. Unmanageability did not work for me. I was unmanageable. I was 19 the first time I got sober. I was 27 before I stayed sober, and I had been unmanageable. And after I got sober, I was still unmanageable. I'm sorry, that doesn't disappear. My unmanageability continued on, you know. Unmanageable didn't really work for me. I didn't get sober under unmanageability. I had to move from unmanageable to unbearable. How many got there? I was unbearable. And I had to get properly horrified by my addiction. My behaviors were so terrible. It was just awful. I was an embarrassment to me. And, I was alone. If you embarrass yourself when you're alone, that's like the guy that hides alcohol in his house and he lives by himself. That's really crazy right there. I heard a guy in a meeting the other night said he hid the alcohol out in his shed. Well, it wasn't his shed, it was his neighbor's shed. I said, you are nuts. Well, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. She's about the age of my granddaughter, and it's just that age where it's like they have discovered that they have a free will and a mind of their own. That's how most of you operate right there. Yeah, you can make decisions. We got that. You can decide whatever you want to decide, but you can't pick the outcome. You can pick the behavior, but you can never select the outcome, and so the outcomes will be what they will be. Step number one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable, and it's about that honesty. It's the acknowledgement of the state of our addiction. It's an essential part of the beginning process. Will we be able to accomplish, what can we accomplish if we're not at least honest about our current dilemma? Your current dilemma is apparent to everybody else, but not so much to you. You have masked it, and you've kind of cordoned it off, and you've excused it, and you've explained it away. You spend hours talking to yourself. How many talk to yourself? Yeah, you lie. Don't lie about it now. How many answer yourself? Well, there's fewer hands now because you think that's better. Talking to yourself and answering yourself is quite normal. When you're standing in the parking lot alone having an argument, this is problematic, okay? So what we want to do is make sure that you have that internal mechanism. You talk to yourself. There's always a conversation going on. And part of this whole process where we begin to be honest about our recovery is that we have an internal conversation and we tell ourselves that we're okay. We tell ourselves that it's different with me. You see, I've got it under control. Shut up. You don't have it. You have nothing under control. The truth of the matter is, if you're thinking you're controlling it, you're already out of control. And you've been out of control for so long that you don't know what being in control looks like. And so you run that gamut with that thing. Honesty about key behaviors. How much did I drink? How often did I use? Why was I doing it? Where did it take me? Did I drink at work? How many drank at work? Yeah, okay. Yeah, both sides. Were you hanging around the people your mama said to stay away from? Yeah, I was the people your mama said to stay away from. I'm sorry. To what extent have we sunk to accommodate this faulty lifestyle? Lowering our standards to accommodate our addiction or hitting bottom, it just doesn't seem to be sufficient. Because we watched you. You got sober, and you got up here with big alligator tears and got your first year medallion or your cross, and woo-hoo, you were sorry, and you were so glad that God freed you, and you, oh, ha-ha, hoo-ha. And the next thing you know, we didn't see you at a meeting for a while, and then you stumbled in the back door, been drunk for 3 months. Am I talking to the right group, or should I go somewhere else? No, I'm talking to the right group. And the truth is, you just kept going back out, and you kept going back out. You have to decide, do you want to quit drinking bad enough to quit drinking? Well, they asked me that question. I wasn't sure what that meant. So I went and had a beer. It was like that, Has there not been evidence, and that overwhelming evidence, that there's a problem in your life? This is what we need to be honest about. Honesty comes from our broadened perspective and our clear evaluation of who we are. See, if you're not being honest. You're not being honest if you're chronically inaccurate. That's not honesty. Some of us are chronically inaccurate. We just make things up as we go along. If we would tell the truth, we got out of trouble, but we lied to cover it. When you're redundantly self-centered, you're not being honest. Oh, I love everybody. I doubt seriously you love anybody. Oh, I love my kids. No, you don't. You don't love your kids. How could you love your kids? You traded in your kids for your addiction. You traded in your kids for crack cocaine or whatever it was you were using. You traded in your kids for Jack Daniels. You stopped being a parent and you walked away. Well, don't tell me how much you love them because you haven't demonstrated that at all. I can tell you that all of us been through that. I traded in everything for one thing. How many did that? And all I'm telling you is to give up the one thing, you get everything back. If you walked away, come on. If you walked away from your children, or you walked away from a good job, or you walked away from your family, I can tell you what, quit drinking and quit using drugs and surrender your life to Christ. I can assure you all the other stuff will come back. And some days it comes back faster than you want it back. You know, I just got rid of that. Now it's back again already. We're operationally opinionated. And if you've ever had a conversation with somebody on Facebook about politics, you understand that most people are operationally opinionated. They're not being honest because they have no clear perspective. Luke 16:10 says this. Jesus went on to make these comments. He says, if you're honest in small things, you'll be honest in big things. If you're a crook in small things, you'll be a crook in big things. If you're not honest in small jobs, who will put you in charge of the store? No worker can serve two bosses. You'll either hate the first and love the second, or adore the first and despise the second. You cannot serve both God and the bank. God and mammon is what the King James says. See, an honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. Some of you have been trying to find one of those for a while. Now stop it and stop looking. You know. My perception of honesty doesn't make it true. Rigorous honesty is being honest about the fact that I'm not capable of being honest. Oh, that's rigorous honesty. You want to know what rigorous honesty? That's rigorous honesty. I'm not honest, I'm not even capable, that I'm powerless over being honest. Left to my own process of thinking, I will tell a lie. The big book on page 73 says this, we have seldom told them the truth, nor have we followed their advice. This is that sponsor that you got. We haven't told them the truth. We haven't followed their advice. Unwilling to be honest with these sympathetic men, we were honest with no one else. If you're lying to your sponsor, you're lying to everybody. And if you're lying to your sponsor, it's a root cause is that you're lying to yourself about your current situation. And, well, I don't know about that sponsor, blah, 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 blah. They expect me to do this, expect me. Well, then get somebody else. But get a sponsor that will tell you the truth, that will look you in the eye and say, you know, you are nuts. You understand that, right? I sponsor people. And turn to the person next to you. Just practice that one time. Just say, you know you're nuts. Go ahead and tell somebody. Honesty, listen now. Honesty is internal. Honesty is not a lying problem, but a heart problem. It's a belief problem. Truth is external. Truth is external. Honesty is internal. It's a heart problem. I'm not defined by what I feel. I'm defined by what I believe. I believe that what I believe makes me who I am. And if you have a heart that's full of dishonesty, you have a heart that's full of discontent, you have a heart that's full of confusion, you have a heart that's full of distrust, and all of the rest of that, and that's your heart, and you're full of that on the inside. You're full of it. Look at the person next to you and say, you're full of it. That's the problem. You're full of the wrong stuff. And you can't get the right answer out of the wrong setting. What I believe in my heart is going to come out of my mouth. The Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And so what's inside of me is ultimately going to come out. And honesty's on the inside, and I need to have honesty on the outside, and I couldn't get it. I just kept lying. On and on I lied. The first time I spoke at an AA meeting, I got up and told my story. It was my home group. I was sober 1 year in Newburgh Heights, Ohio, and that's what they made you do. They put on a suit, get up there and tell your story. And I got up. At the end, this old lady came up to me, and she said, you know, David, your story's bad enough. You don't need to make things up. I don't know how she knew I was making things up, but I wanted to kill her because she was right. The problem was she was right. I was just adding stuff in there that wasn't real. I mean, it was just like I felt like I need to embellish it so you'd like me. So I did what most people do. I just left that group. I said, fine, I don't need to be here. You know, some of you do that. Somebody challenges you for a minute and you just disappear. Move to the other side of the county, you know. I'm going to go, I have a different meeting I'm going to now. I think God led me over there. Shut up. It's your bad attitude that led you over there. Somebody told you what you didn't want to hear, and you thought, boy, I need to get out of here quick before they really find out who I am. Well, they already know who you are. We're not blind, you know. Honesty's internal. And I needed external. And so what I did is I went to AA and I went to the church and I got a body of truth that was external to me. They had truth, and I put that truth on the inside of me. And suddenly, when I changed the inside of me and I put truth inside of me, then all of a sudden the byproduct was I started being honest. You will know the truth, and before the truth can set you free, you need to identify the specific false beliefs that are holding you hostage. That's verse 31. The truth will set you free. That's verse 32. Verse 31. I'm not going to tell you anymore. You can go look it up. If you continue in my word, then you're my disciples indeed, and then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That's what it says. Then we have the veracity, which is the love of truth. After you've operated with honesty for a while, and you get that truth, and it produces honesty, then you'll come to a place where you fall in love with the truth. It's called veracity. That's the guy that's got his big book all highlighted and marked and little paper clips and stuff hanging out of it, and he's walking around with his big book and says, how you doing? And you go, I'm okay. And they go, let me show you something. It's like, oh, I didn't really want to talk to you, you know. I need to go pee. That's always my answer. I don't feel like talking. I got to pee. I'm sorry. I drank too much water, you know. That's how you get out of that. You know, there's a place. Veracity will carry you for a long ways. When you fall in love, if you want to stay sober, fall in love with the meetings, not just the people at the meetings, not just the room, not just the format, but fall in love with the nuggets of truth that you get at every meeting. Every meeting's like getting a puzzle. And I have a puzzle I've been working on for a long time, and I go to the meeting and somebody throws something on the table and I got a piece for my puzzle and I put that piece in there. It feels so good. That's what I call taking notes. And I've written several books out of taking notes. I got several books I could write because I take notes wherever I go. I write down those nuggets. I fell in love with it. And if you fall in love with this thing, the message, the truth of sobriety, then you'll come up to another principle, which is called loyalty. That I will be loyal to that message. I've been loyal to this message now for 40 years. I've been teaching the recovery process for 40 years. In 1985, I taught my first class on the 12 steps called the Principle Approach, and I taught it to a group of ministers that thought I was crazy. They actually thought I was the Antichrist, and I thought they didn't deserve a nice guy like me, so we had an equal common thing. I still teach it. I'll be teaching in that school tomorrow. This is 40 years later. I'm still teaching in that school. I can tell you that God's opened that up for me. And so we come to this place. What we have to do is we have to identify what the false beliefs are that we're embracing. And if we identify those things, then what will happen? See, there's a thing that says what happened, what it's like, and what happened, what it's like, and what happened, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like. What it's like now, yeah, Well, some people, they just camp on that. That's the only thing they ever learn. I got sober on this date. Oh, that's good. What have you learned since then? If your whole biography, if you write your biography out, and the whole biography is about the day that you got born, and you don't write anything beyond that, you're pretty stunted. You know, you're still an infant. You're embryonic in your spiritual walk. We need to grow beyond that. Most of my stories on the sobriety side, you know, and I tell that story and I look at the little glimpses back into what it was like, and I can tell you what, it makes me cry. When I get up and tell my story now, it always brings me to tears. It's a terrible thing. It's a wonderful thing. How about that? The good news is you'll feel again. The bad news is you'll feel again. And so I look back, and my gratitude is so overwhelming when I start really looking hard at where I came from and to where I've come to. It's an amazing thing. This idea of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now is a description of a life transformed. If you'll be honest, your life could be transformed. A transformation of a life from the throes of addiction to walking in freedom with God. It describes a changed life. We're not staying sober so we can stay the same. We're staying sober so that we can change. Big book on page 45, it says, this is exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. The big book says the drink problem's been solved. I don't have a drinking problem. I don't drink, and I don't plan on ever drinking again. That problem has been solved. Come on. So, there's a little sidebar I want to take you on because I only got 3 or 4 minutes left. But maybe longer than that. She's keeping track, and she will throw a bottle of water at me if I go too long. You know, because you're in recovery, because you found out that you had an addiction, and you think, well, now I have to do this. I want to talk to some of you that feel like you have to do this. Some of you repeaters. You know, you've been coming to AA for 20 years and you got 12 minutes sober. You know, you're experienced beginners. Your experience is so small, so minute. You've never really got honest, and so all the rest of it didn't work. When they say step one, that's the only one you have to be complete about. Well, I don't buy that. But the truth of the matter is, if you'll be honest in step one, if you'll make that, then that honesty will carry through all the rest of the steps, and then you'll be able to do the steps with honesty, and then they'll have an impact. If you don't do the steps with honesty, there'll be gray areas and shadows and things that remain and things that lurk, and you'll battle with it. Whatever you skip in step 4, I'm going to tell you what, it's going to come back to haunt you. So you have to be honest in step 1 and lay your cards on the table. But we're not the only ones. We're not, just because you've got an addiction, does that you think that separates you out and you're like some chosen group of people? No, all of culture, all of the people that were ever born on this planet need a step 1. All of them need to be honest. They need to admit that they're powerless over alcohol. Left to my own resources, separate from God, I'm always powerless. I want to take you on a little journey back and just give you a little glimpse back into some history of what this really looks like. How many heard about Adam and Eve? How many heard that story? How many have never heard that story? Let me see your hand. They even have porn shops called Adam and Eve, so don't look at me like, I don't know. Adam and Eve were in the garden, and they had a daily prayer life. Well, that should be, they didn't need anything. They didn't need material things. They didn't need healing. They didn't need relationship help. They didn't need anything. They had everything. They lived in perfection, and every day they walked with God and talked with God. How important is your prayer life? Prayer is powerful. Come on, prayer is You need to have a prayer life. So Adam and Eve were walking in the garden. They had a daily prayer life. They walked with God every day. And the serpent came. How many heard about the serpent? Serpent came. He walked up and said, you know that tree over there? God said you can't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because if you eat of that, then you'll die. And he said, you know, if you eat of that tree, you'll be like God. And what they should have said is, we're already like God. Leave us alone. It was a question of who they were. Often when your addiction comes back down, it will begin to question your identity and who you are. Well, they had the question, and they started looking at that tree, and it started looking better. And so they ate of the tree. They gave up everything for one thing. Hello, are you all listening? They picked one thing just like you did, and you gave up everything. They gave up everything for one thing. And so then God, he spoke that curse, and he told Eve, you're going to have great labor in childbearing. And he told Adam, you're going to have to work with the sweat of your brows, and the land was cursed, and all that stuff. And they were kicked from the garden. But you know, the serpent got a punishment that day too. Did you know that? The serpent was walking around to that point. The snake didn't crawl up there and tempt him. The serpent walked up. Because on that day, God said, from now on, you're going to crawl on your belly. On that day, the serpent had his feet removed. He was defeated. He was defeated. And he was told, from now on, you'll crawl on your belly and you'll eat the dust of the earth. And so the serpent was given an assignment by God to eat the dust of the earth. We have learned if we walk in the Spirit, we won't fulfill the lust of the flesh. The flesh is our human nature, or our mortal nature. The flesh, and you have to understand that you were created, mankind was created from the dust of the earth. How many heard about that? You were created from the dust of the earth. And as long as you walk in the Spirit, you're pretty safe. But if you get over there and start walking in the flesh, then the serpent has been designed and assigned to eat your dust. And he will come and consume you. You have to walk in the Spirit. You have to walk with God and stay out of that self-centered, self-seeking, self-will run riot nature. As soon as you go over there, bad things start happening. How many noticed that? Some of you thought when you became a Christian, the devil started attacking you. See, some of you believe that. That's a theology, that the devil started attacking you. Can I help you with something? You were created in God's image. You were created in His image. The image of God is on you. And while you were out there in the throes of your addiction, the devil saw you and hated you and was trying to destroy you. Why do you think you had so much destruction in the middle of your addiction? Because the devil was trying to destroy you then. And when you finally came to God and you sobered up, now you could see he was trying to destroy you, but he was after you all the time. I don't care if you're a crackhead living under a bridge, staying high every day. You still have the image of God. You were created in His image, and when the devil sees you, he hates you and wants to destroy that image. There, you ought to clap right there. That's a good place to clap. So what we have to do is let go of the old nature. We have to be honest about our old nature. We have to be honest about how we were created. Don't look at step one like, well, I'm an alcoholic and I have to do these steps. Look at step one as I am part of the human race that all need this same process. All of them have to go through a process like this so that they can learn what it is that they need in their life. And the ones that don't live and they find another God. They find a God, maybe money is their God, or maybe fame is their God, or power is their God. They find something. Everybody's going to serve somebody. What happens is you find your addiction and it becomes the thing that the enemy intended for evil, becomes the greatest gift of God. Because now I can see the destruction so clearly. I don't have to look too hard. If you got lots of money, lots of fame, and lots of power, well, it's hard to see that you need anything. But you don't have that. I'm sorry, I said you don't have that. You don't have a lot of money and a lot of fame and a lot of power. You're just a plain old garden variety drunk. You're an old meth head. You don't have all those problems. What you have is you gave up everything for one thing. You got to get rid of that one thing and you'll get everything back. Because now you'll acknowledge the fact that I'm powerless and my life is unmanageable, unbearable. I'm properly horrified by my addiction. And if you ever get properly horrified by your behaviors, you'll do the rest of those steps. Step number one, we admitted we're powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. The principle is called honesty. Welcome to your new life.